For most people today, salt is little more than a cheap seasoning sitting forgotten on the kitchen table. Yet there was a time when a handful of white crystals could buy loyalty, fund wars, spark revolutions, and determine whether entire civilizations survived or disappeared. Long before oil, gold, or even spices ruled global trade, one simple mineral shaped the destiny of humanity. Kings fought to control it. Merchants risked deserts to transport it. Governments taxed it so heavily that it helped ignite rebellions. Entire cities rose because of salt, while others crumbled when its supply vanished. The real story of salt isn't about food. It's about power. And once you discover how deeply this ordinary mineral influenced history, you'll never look at your dinner table the same way again. Salt is one of the few substances every human being needs to survive. Without it, muscles fail, nerves stop working, and life itself becomes impossible. But for thousands of years, finding enough salt wasn't easy. Before refrigeration, it was also the secret that kept food edible through harsh winters, long voyages, and devastating famines. That simple necessity transformed salt into one of history's most valuable commodities. From ancient kingdoms to global empires, control over salt often meant control over people. The journey begins thousands of years ago, when humanity first discovered that these tiny crystals possessed the power to preserve not only food, but entire civilizations. Chapter 1. Humanity's first white treasure. Long before written history, early humans noticed that wild animals repeatedly visited natural salt deposits. Hunters followed these paths, eventually discovering that salt made food taste better and helped replenish the body after exhausting hunts. As agriculture replaced hunting, salt became even more important. Harvests lasted only as long as food could be preserved, and salt offered a solution unlike anything else. Fish, meat, cheese, and vegetables could now survive for months instead of days. Ancient settlements naturally formed near salt springs and coastal evaporation sites. Archaeologists have uncovered evidence of salt production dating back more than 7,000 years in parts of Europe and China, suggesting that organized salt-making developed alongside some of humanity's earliest permanent communities. In many places, salt became more valuable than precious metals simply because everyone needed it. Gold could symbolize wealth, but salt sustained life. Yet this growing dependence created an entirely new kind of power. Whoever controlled the salt supply controlled everyone who depended upon it. And history was about to prove just how dangerous that power could become. Chapter 2. Salt and the Rise of Ancient Civilizations. Ancient Egypt relied heavily on salt for preserving fish, storing meat, and preparing food for workers constructing monumental temples and pyramids. Even mummification depended on natron, a naturally occurring mixture rich in sodium compounds that helped preserve bodies for eternity. Across China, imperial governments recognized salt as one of the state's most profitable resources. By controlling production and taxation, emperors generated enormous revenues that funded armies, irrigation systems, and expanding bureaucracies. Some historians argue that China's salt monopoly became one of the world's earliest examples of large-scale government economic management. Meanwhile, across the Mediterranean, Phoenician traders carried salt alongside luxury goods, linking distant cultures through expanding trade networks. Salt had quietly become more than nourishment. It was becoming an instrument of government. But another civilization would elevate salt from a necessity into one of history's greatest strategic assets. Chapter 3. The Roads that Fed an Empire. The Roman Empire understood a simple truth. Armies march on preserved food. Roman soldiers often traveled enormous distances carrying salted meat, fish, and cheese. Reliable salt supplies meant legions could campaign far from home for extended periods, giving Rome an enormous military advantage. One of Rome's earliest major roads, the Via Salaria, or Salt Road, connected inland communities with coastal salt works. The route became a vital commercial artery, helping expand trade while strengthening Rome's political influence across central Italy. The word salary is frequently linked to the Latin word salarium, although historians continue to debate whether Roman soldiers were literally paid in salt or whether the term referred to money associated with purchasing it. Regardless of the exact origin, the connection reveals just how valuable salt had become within Roman society. But even Rome's vast network could not contain salt's growing influence. Far beyond imperial borders, caravans were crossing some of Earth's harshest landscapes in pursuit of the same precious crystals. Chapter 4. Across the world's harshest deserts. The Sahara may seem like an endless sea of sand, yet for centuries it hosted one of history's richest trade routes. Massive slabs of salt mined from places such as Taghaza were loaded onto camel caravans and transported hundreds of miles across brutal deserts. In West Africa, salt was exchanged for gold, creating astonishing wealth for kingdoms including Ghana, Mali, and Songhai. In cities like Timbuktu, merchants negotiated fortunes based on supplies that could determine whether communities survived dry seasons. In some regions, salt was worth nearly its weight in gold because while gold represented luxury, salt represented survival. These trade routes connected Africa with North Africa, the Middle East, and Europe, spreading ideas, religions, and technologies alongside valuable cargo. But prosperity often attracts control. Soon, rulers discovered that taxing salt could generate fortunes without ever mining a single crystal themselves. Chapter 5. The tax that changed nations. Few governments resisted the temptation to tax something everyone needed. In medieval Europe, salt taxes became a dependable source of royal income. France's infamous gabelle forced many citizens to buy fixed amounts of heavily taxed salt. Smuggling flourished, resentment spread, and public anger simmered for generations. Many historians consider the hated salt tax one of several factors that fueled growing dissatisfaction before the French Revolution. It wasn't the only cause, but it became a powerful symbol of unequal government control. Centuries later, another salt tax would shake an empire on the other side of the world. This time, the protest would be peaceful, but its consequences would echo across history. Chapter 6. A handful of salt against an empire. In 1930, British colonial authorities tightly controlled salt production in India while taxing a resource that millions depended upon every day. Rather than choosing a weapon, Mohandas Gandhi chose a walk. He marched roughly 240 miles to the Arabian Sea with thousands of followers. Upon reaching the coast, he picked up a small handful of natural salt, deliberately violating British law. The gesture seemed almost insignificant. Yet newspapers around the world captured the moment. Millions recognized its deeper meaning. When a government claims ownership over something as essential as salt, even collecting it from the shoreline becomes an act of resistance. The Salt March inspired widespread civil disobedience and became one of the defining events in India's struggle for independence. Still, salt's influence didn't end with revolutions. Its greatest legacy was already woven into the foundations of the modern world. Chapter 7. From white gold to an everyday mineral. By the beginning of the 20th century, something extraordinary happened to salt. For thousands of years, rulers had fought to control it, merchants had crossed continents to trade it, and ordinary people had paid heavy taxes simply to survive. Then, almost quietly, salt lost its status as one of the world's most precious commodities. The biggest reason was technology. Railroads replaced slow caravans. Steamships connected distant ports in days instead of months. Modern mining equipment unlocked enormous underground deposits that earlier civilizations could never reach. At the same time, refrigeration transformed food preservation. Families no longer depended entirely on salt to keep meat and fish from spoiling. What had once been a matter of survival gradually became a matter of convenience. Yet salt never truly disappeared from history. It simply changed its role. Today, millions of tons are used every year, not only for food but also for manufacturing chemicals, producing glass and paper, treating leather, softening water, and clearing icy roads during harsh winters. Hospitals rely on saline solutions to save lives, Farmers use salt to support livestock. Entire industries continue to depend on sodium chloride in ways most people rarely notice. Perhaps the greatest irony is that modern society uses more salt than any civilization before it, even though few people think about where it comes from. A mineral that once symbolized wealth now sits on nearly every dining table, inexpensive enough to be taken for granted. But history has a way of hiding its greatest influences in the most ordinary objects. Salt no longer decides the fate of empires, yet its legacy remains embedded in our language, our economies, our technology, and even our daily meals. Every grain is a quiet reminder that some of the most powerful forces in human history were never rare or glamorous. They were simply essential. The history of salt reveals a remarkable pattern repeated across thousands of years. Civilizations that secured reliable salt supplies could preserve food, support larger populations, expand trade, and sustain powerful armies. Those advantages translated into political stability, economic growth, and military success. Empires didn't simply fight because salt was valuable. They fought because salt made everything else possible. Roads, ports, taxation systems, international trade routes, and even legal institutions evolved partly around controlling this essential mineral. Entire economies were built on its production, while monopolies over salt financed governments for centuries. Today, refrigeration has stripped salt of much of its economic dominance. A product once worth extraordinary fortunes can now be purchased almost anywhere for a few dollars. Yet every modern supply chain, every preserved food, every global trade network carries echoes of a world where these tiny white crystals determined who prospered and who disappeared from history. Conclusion: salt rarely receives the attention given to gold, oil, or silk. It lacks the glamour of precious gems and the drama of famous battles. Yet without salt, many of those battles could never have been fought. Countless cities might never have existed, and some of history's greatest empires might never have risen at all. Sometimes the forces that shape civilization aren't the rarest or the most beautiful. They're the ones so ordinary that we stop noticing them. So the next time you sprinkle salt onto a meal, consider this. Could the most powerful resource in history have been hiding in plain sight all along?